Sorry.
Welcome to Unscripted. Relationships are special, a talk show that is focused on celebrating relationships. It's a platform where people come with their loved ones who matter to them the most, be it spouse, parents, teachers, friends, colleagues, cousins, uncles, many more.
Unscripted, as the name suggests, depicts courage, authenticity, vulnerability, love, resilience, and patience. A novel idea where people speak their hearts out. We urge our invitees, sharing a special bond, to reveal how they contribute and keep the smiles intact in that relationship. Come along, smile, and participate in the excursion of connections. Welcome to Unscripted. Great, Sushalaka. I think this is congratulations. The fifth episode with two people who are going to share a special bond.
Yes, that's right.
And team, so we want to let you know that we've had 5 sessions. Today is the fifth session. The 4 sessions that we completed had, a couple who came and shared their relationships. We had a father-daughter trio where 2 teenage daughters came with their father to share their special bond with us. Last week, Vinay Verma sir and Manjiri, they came and they gave a complete different perspective of how roles get reversed, after a certain age when your children grow, when the father and daughter relationship evolves, and how now Manjiri takes care of Vinay sir in a lot of elements they shared. It was fun, it was touching, and we had a lot of emotional moments, a lot of funny moments, and an absolute journey of what it takes to build a relationship. Continuing the legacy, today we have a special father and daughter with us, and I'm going to have request Shalaka to introduce them to bring up on the show.
So I feel like it's been a father-daughter season. So let's welcome our guests today, Subramanian and Aishwarya, on this show. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to
Hi.
Unscripted.
Hi.
Wow, that's so amazing. So Subbu, first of all, thank you, and thank you Aishwarya for being with us on this show today. We are absolutely looking forward for this interaction.
Same here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to see how this is going to turn out.
Great. So we are going to start with a fun game.
Okay.
Okay, so the first thing that I want you all to do is grab anything that's around you, any one thing, Aishwarya and Subbu both, just one thing around you. What do you all have? Just show it to us. Okay, that's a cell phone, right?
No, that's a remote.
What is it?
Remote. It's an air conditioner.
Okay, it's a remote. And what do you have, Aishwarya?
Headphones.
Headphones. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So now what you are going to do, Aishwarya, is introduce Subramanian as relating to your headphones. How would you introduce him? What are the characteristics that are similar to the headphone that you have? And Subbu, and Subbu, for you, you have the remote. So you will introduce Aishwarya in the similar way. So any one of you can go first.
Do you want me to go first or you want to go? Okay, so let me start. So, the headphones are such a crucial part of our lives, right? Because in moments of enjoyment, when you want to speak to someone, when you want to feel heard, they really are the tools that kind of help you to do that. And personally, for me, I really enjoy listening, and I enjoy communicating, and I just can't imagine with someone like my dad, as essential as the headphone is in listening and communicating, what that would be if I didn't have this tool or this medium with me. And the interesting thing about the headphones, as well as my dad, is like, sometimes they can get loud, but sometimes they're also pretty mellow. So they have their ups and downs, no pun intended.
That's such an amazing introduction. Thank you so much, Aishwarya. Subramanian.
I
Yeah,
think
so I was wondering.
just before you start, Subbu, I think we can call him Subbu because I
Okay.
think that's how he's known in his
Okay.
circles.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was wondering what am I going to say with regards to the remote? And then I started sensing some commonalities in our relationship. So like the remote button is in my hand, but the real functioning is somewhere else in another body, right? It's the air condition that really gets switched on from remotely. And if I had to relate to that, and if I had to say what's the connection or how do I introduce her with the analogy of the remote, then I would say one connection or one way I could see is to some degree and to some extent, my heart is remotely placed in her anyway. So if somebody has to connect the remote aspect of it, that's one way of saying that, and I mean seriously or even with the way it is. And of course, being the only daughter, needless to add that aspect of it. And I think somewhere the remote also connects with the thermostat. And the thermostat for me is the programming that's being done or has been done on her over the period of time, consciously and unconsciously, and which basically means hopefully that thermostat functions in those boundaries and takes breaks those boundaries for the right reasons.
That's so well put. Thank you so much, Subbu.
Great. I think that's the beauty of unscripted. And when with Shalaka around, please expect these twists and things that we're not generally prepared for. So, Subbu, to get started with this whole conversation, I remember when we spoke to you the first time and we invited you on the show, you chose to come with Aishwarya, which clearly states that there is a special bond that you have with Aishwarya. I want to know how this whole thing evolved. How was your reaction when you actually saw Aishwarya the first time?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question and an interesting response that you might get from me. And I don't know how it has been for all the other fathers. But I think when I saw her for the first time, the first day when she was born, everyone around us were so excited. And I was, in a way, being primed to be excited as well because everyone seemed all gung ho and all of that. So, and I think to some degree I was, but the interesting aspect of that was as soon as I saw her for the first time, the biggest thought in my mind, or the first thought in my mind was, yeah, this is my baby. There's no questions about it. But I wasn't feeling anything. There wasn't any connect with that aspect of it, and so yeah. So and I was asking myself, is that normal? Is that how people feel about it? But yeah, that's how it started, so to say. But I think in a day or two, I think things started to happen, and I think one of the reference points here is on the second day. I think we had to move her to an ICU in a different hospital, and that was because I think the nurse noticed that the baby was not breathing, and that was a shocker. I wasn't there in the hospital. Sunita was there with the baby, and I think they moved her to another hospital, and I think we quickly followed up to the place where they were going. And after looking at it and doing multiple tests, the doctor said they would have to do another test, which would be drawing the fluid from the spinal cord. And people at that time, all around you, all the well-wishers, in all the well-meaning ways, they were educating us along the way. And I was kind of somebody popped in this information that drawing the fluid from the spinal cord is the most painful thing. So imagine a 2-day baby admitted to the ICU hospital, and the doctor says he needs to do multiple tests. So if that wasn't enough, he does all the tests. The test comes through, and the reports come through, and then the doctor says, and we look at him. He comes out of the room, and we look at him and say, "So what do you think?" And he says, "We will have to wait 24 hours." And that really was a shocker, to say the least. And I think that when it wasn't 24 hours, it probably was 16 hours, because he said tomorrow morning we will have to wait and see how things shape up. Obviously, we had to rely on all the powers of the Supreme or God, whatever you want to call it. And it was an interesting 12, 18 hours for me and for all of us. And then I started realizing that babies can be very resilient, and they can be so resilient that it probably will surprise us, because I saw many babies in the ICUs, and all of them under some needle in particular incubator boxes and all of that. And there were many other parents who were around us who were sharing their stories, and suddenly you start realizing that how grateful you need to be for all the resilience and all the experiences that others have had versus you. So unknowingly, I think that incident, and of course, things started improving. Everything came through well by the grace of God, and that was the last of it. So that obviously kicked in the bonding significantly, accelerated the whole attachment, if you want to call it. And I don't even remember this incident until you spoke.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that, Subbu. And I'm so glad that Aishwarya is all fit and fine and rock star right now. I think maybe Aishwarya, I think, resilience probably is what you're born with, if I may say so.
Yeah, I guess, but I mean, this is the first time, or rather the second time that I'm hearing this. So for me, like looking back at it, it's interesting because I didn't think that there was, anything different than a normal delivery that I had gone through. But yeah, it was interesting to see. I mean, to hear this from you as well.
Great. So, Subbu, my next question is to you again. So, as kids, like normally, everybody has their own way of throwing tantrums, and I'm sure Aishwarya also is no different. So, can you share what kind of tantrums she threw when she was young?
Tantrums, it's strange again, and I start with strange because I have never seen her throwing tantrums. In fact, it's been a reverse case for me where I would wonder if everything was okay with her. And, and why do I say that? Because I'm reminded of this scene. It was her birthday, and this was, I think, early 2000, probably 2001. We were in Singapore, and she must be 6 or 7. And we take her to the large toys chain of shops called Toys R Us. And obviously, if you know Toys R Us, it's entirely toys only, period. There's nothing else. And for all age groups. And so I take her into that store, and I have not said anything to her saying this is all you need to do, or this is this budget, or this is the max number. And I take her into it. She looks around. She picks up one, keeps that down, picks up something else, keeps that down, picks another thing, keeps that down, and this goes on for quite a long period of time. So I had to ask her, saying that, aren't you getting something, or are you looking for something? And then she says, no, no, I'm just looking around. And then I start seeing that she's looking, picking up and looking at the price and then keeping it down. So you start, and suddenly I start asking myself, have I done something to her to be so conscious about the price? Because I haven't even said anything to that. So you start reflecting, and I asked Sunita, my wife, saying that, have we done too much that she is so conscious of the price? Now, or the background information here is, when we were moving into Singapore from Mumbai, one of the biggest reference points for me was I did not want an affluent society's culture to have any negative impact. And by that, one of the key points for me was to understand the value for money. So I think I have instilled that or tried to instill it. But in the process, you don't want to go the other extreme either. So I had to really start reflecting on this. And I had tough time to convince her to pick up a toy that she liked. And after that, I think I was very conscious. I started asking myself, मैंने कुछ ज़्यादा कुछ कर दिया है यहाँ पे. So tantrums nahi hua hai, but she has been in a way where she would force me to reflect again as to whether I am doing at the right measurements with whatever intents I had.
Wow.
Wow, that's so nice.
Beautiful. Okay. Thanks for sharing, and thanks for being so genuine, so candid, Subbu, for sharing these instances with us.
And I'm reminded of another instant in the same genre. It is probably not a tantrum, but I think if I were to say, if there was any major ask from her, right? Major want, if you want to say it that way. And I remember she must be around 10, 12 at that time, probably in her 7th grade or 8th grade.
Yeah.
And she said she wants an iPhone. Until then, I think for the last 3-4 years until then, was she would get our phones handed over to her. So once we finish using the phone, we will give it to her. And then she said, no, I want my phone. And I said, okay, which model? And she says iPhone. And iPhone is premium today and was premium at that point in time as well. And I was saying, okay, so this is going a couple of notches above what I would have given to any other, or my father would have given, if you want to say it that way. And then somehow me and Sunita talk to each other and we agree that we will do this, because there hasn't been any particular ask from her at all. And so I didn't want to kind of do anything against it. But the way I did that was where the interesting part was, because Sunita said, you have made a decision, and why are you debating and arguing with her? I said, I'm not arguing. I said, I was telling her, I want her to understand, to negotiate and ask what she wants to ask by a particular way. I want her to learn to negotiate and get things. I don't want her to take it as free and as easy as that. So we're going in a cab, and there's about 20-minute journey, and she's positioning herself as to why she needs an iPhone. And Sunita here is saying, I really don't understand what are you up to. I really don't understand why you're being so rude or cruel, or I don't remember what she said. But that's what was on one end. I'm discussing with Aishwarya. On the other hand, I'm sitting in the middle, I think, and both of them are two different sides. And both are going in opposite directions, and I'm having this conversation which I very clearly remember. So anyway, I think at the end of that ride, I think I said yes to it. So yeah, tantrum.
That story actually brings me to Aishwarya. Aishwarya, as children, when we all grow up, I still have to listen to that from my father, and I'm sure my kid listens to that from me. But there is always this one favorite "Hamare zamane mein" dialogue.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's that "Hamare zamane mein" dialogue from Subbu that you remember of?
I think mostly around the negotiations of a phone and all of that, because I think once there was also an incident where I lost my phone and obviously went back, couldn't find it. So, and that time he was like telling me, like, not upset, but trying to say that, hey, this was something that you had, which, equally back at my age, in my time, we didn't have. So do you realize what's happening here? And like he would make sure that you understand it, like it's spelled out very clearly. Just that you understand how lucky, or like how important that having a phone at such a young age was. So those dialogues I've definitely heard. More so when I was young. Obviously, afterwards, as I grew up, not as much.
इतना घिसा पिटा भी नहीं था.
नहीं, इतना नहीं था. But tha, also again around the phone only, because I think growing up, the one thing that I was like really drawn towards were like phones and everything. So mostly that.
Wonderful.
Wonderful. That's nice.
So, Aishwarya, next question, just on this exploration, while we are talking about
Mm-hmm.
what struck me is, you mentioned while we were just having a catch up, where you discovered the passion for photography that Subbu had on one of your trips.
Yeah.
I would actually want to hear that, that whole passion that Subbu holds, because that was something very new to us as well. We didn't know.
Right.
So, so,
Sure.
so will
It
you
was,
tell
it
me
was
about?
more passion and
Yeah, it was more than passion. It was madness, maybe to a certain extent, but yeah. So I mean, see, for I knew that obviously my dad loved photography, because ever since I was a young kid, since the move to Singapore, actually,
even
um,
before.
even before, but the memories that I vividly recall, on the weekends, on Saturday and Sunday, like dad would take his camera out, and then he'd tell me to like set up the light and everything and tell me to pose, and we actually have photographs of that. So those memories are pretty strong, and I knew that, okay, yeah, he likes photography. But obviously, like, liking it, being passionate about it, and then some more, they're three different things, right? So we had gone on a trip to Europe, and we obviously, first couple of days, mom and I were very exhausted because of the jet lag and everything, but dad wouldn't give up an opportunity to go out and like do his photography. Like, he has gone to Paris in the Eiffel Tower in the night time, and gone around doing all of that.
I was very happy in London that you were sleeping, so I
Yeah,
could be free to take my photo.
he once we knocked out, he just left. The next thing we recall is like we woke up and we're like, where is dad? And we can't find him anywhere. And next thing I get in touch with him, and he's like, yeah, I'm on the night tour of the Eiffel Tower taking some photographs. So on that trip, I think somehow I was like, okay, let me try and see what this passion or what this photography is all about. And I remember we were in Venice in Burano, and my dad had this, he would know the technical term for it, but he had this like really long lens, which,
It's a telephoto 200 mm.
yeah, so a telephoto lens, and it was really heavier than the body of the camera itself, when you have to really support the lens and like take photographs. So after much request, he obliged, and he's like, okay, sure, I'll help you, figure out how to take these photographs. And little did I know that when you take that lens and latch it onto the camera, there's like the sound and this click that you need to hear to know that it's fully attached. And right when I was about to like kind of focus and zoom in on something that I wanted to click, the lens falls, right? And as it's falling from my hands, like physiologically, there is my flight or fight response kicks in, and it's like you can't run away from this, so you have to face to the disappointment or the anger that's going to follow. And yeah, he was really upset about it, because
My heart fell.
yeah, it was literally his heart falling down. And for me, like, I mean, I was scared, but that's the moment when I really understood, okay, to what level is this passion.
So this was a lens sourced from US, and it was a professional lens, uh, the most expensive in my kitty,
Yeah,
and obviously it fell. I knew it will have a dent. I knew it would
it
have more
did.
than a dent.
Yeah,
So dent visually it wasn't as bad,
bad. Yeah.
but I think later I realized it wasn't auto adjusting itself.
So yeah, that I think that experience was really interesting, to understand a bit more about his passion for photography.
That's awesome. It's a very nice experience, and it shows, I think, Subbu's passion towards photography. And I think probably many of his friends and maybe relatives wouldn't be aware, and they would know what kind of a passion that he has.
Yeah, some of my close ones, at least the family close circles, know that I would lug the entire 15 kgs of
Yeah.
equipments in most of the places, whether it is mountain trekking or whatever. Of course, those were, I call it the madness or the fever
Phase.
for it.
Yeah.
So
That's nice. So the next, the query that I have for you, Subbu, is, you mentioned in our conversation that we were having that you wanted Aishwarya to be independent. So what is the story behind it? Like why that you were striving and ensuring that he needs to be independent and things like that?
yeah, so again, I don't know whether I should start by saying this strange philosophy or thought, but I will still use that word because I don't think it's common. And if it is common, people can post it on their chat. Um, I had this thought that if you want to make errors and mistakes in your life, you are better off making those as early in your life than later. And this was the what shall we say? This
Motto.
is call it motto or call it
Mantra.
the philosophical underpinning of whatever I did. And on top of that, there was another dimension to this was she was the only child, so which means she doesn't have anybody after we've gone. So the question then was the more early in life she becomes independent, then that much safer is what I'm going to give back as a case in this case. And call it the bonding or call it the relationship, all of that put together. Now, I knew based on few instances where when she was at the age of 5 or 6, again, we tested it by sending her alone from Singapore to Mumbai in a flight, and nobody accompanied her. The air hostesses took care of it. And I was sure and that went well. So I knew she is able to be independent as early as that. And subsequently, all the signs that I had indicated that she was as independent and as conscientious as one could be. So all good until my friend's daughter visits Singapore and she comes in for a degree, pursuing a degree in Singapore. So it's a residential program. And we become the guardians for her. And she goes through some hiccups managing her environment, her people in her shared apartment. And there are hiccups where I suddenly am made to realize that it's not the age, it's the way you are put into circumstances and the life experiences which makes you independent or not so independent, let's say that way. It's not that she wasn't independent, but I could sense there were moments in her stay in Singapore for 2 years or so where we had to give some moral support, and there was one instance where I could clearly see in the eye that she felt comfortable as soon as we were there around her. So the question I had from there on with that experience was, what proof do I have that Aishwarya is as independent in my own world? Because I may be having a bias that she is independent, but I haven't seen real inputs or real test or proof to say she is really, really independent. So then the thought started. I think it stayed with me for a while, and then suddenly one day I get a call from my brother-in-law, and he says my niece is planning to go pursue IB course curriculum, which is a residential program, and that idea we continue to discuss, and I try to understand her. Initially, I am kind of looking at it as an external. She is pursuing. As we continue to discuss this, and I understand as to why and all of that, I suddenly realized that there could be an opportunity for me to also send her to a residential program. So that thought comes in along with that discussion. And I think before I know what I was doing, what I do is I tell her that Radhika is pursuing an IB curriculum and she's going for this college, so this school. And so I log into the internet, she looks at it, and she's looking at it, I'm looking at it, and that way a week goes by. And then I ask her, what do you think? And because I don't want to say anything more than that. So I said, what do you think? She said, it looks good. I said, what do you mean looks good? So she said, yeah, I like what she is doing. I said, are you saying you would want to go? She said, yeah. So I said, okay. And I left it at that. I didn't push it anymore and I left it. Another week goes by. I suddenly realized that the niece has decided not to pursue that school. So now I am saying, okay, so I said, you last time you mentioned that you were equally keen to go. She said, yeah, I'm equally keen if there is a possibility. I said, are you saying it because Radhika is going there, or are you really wanting to go on your own, even if Radhika is not wanting to go? She said, yeah, even if she's not going, I'm willing to try that and go there. I like the idea. I said, okay. And another couple of days goes by, and then I said, if you're serious, then start looking for options. And I don't want you to look at North. I want you to look at something in South. Now, I didn't want her to go to Mumbai, where all of my relatives, my parents, and all of them are there. I wanted to go to a city where relatively she is disconnected from relatives who can come in for help. That way, the independence is quote unquote really independent, right? And she identifies an IB school. We look at the website. The website looks pretty cool, and the campus looks even more pretty cool. And I said, "Look, Aishwarya, this is on the website. Don't go by the website because
Let's
this is
go
not going to be the
visit.
truth.
Yeah.
When you land up there, it might be a different story. So, are you serious about this?" And so we test it multiple times. We agree. Sunita and I discuss this. We say, "Yeah, that sounds like good." So we make us again a strange decision. She is in 11th, and we decide to take her out of that middle, in the middle of the 11th.
Yeah, I'd done
We,
6 months of 11th grade in
yeah.
Singapore.
And we have done all the research, contacted the school, we have an appointment, we go to Bangalore to see, and if she likes it, she will join. So that's the way it is. So we go there, go through the process, steps, etc., etc. One leads to the other, and then we go and let her be there for the entire 2 year period. Now, all along, there has also been a thought in my mind saying, as a father, what have I contributed to my only daughter? Right? That's the other thing running in my mind. And there was nothing tangible that I could get. But I think this particular one decision, hindsight, was probably the best thing I did. um, and and so sometimes you make decisions which are not you're not sure, because if it doesn't work, then it's going to be catastrophic. I mean, if nothing else, you'll have to kind of rewind the whole steps again and bring her back, etc., etc. And none of us have tested. We haven't tested ourselves for her to live alone, nor has she tested herself to live alone. But anyway, hindsight, everything went well. It was the best decision that happened, and yeah, so that was a proof.
Beautiful. What an amazing. I think sometimes I use these words, Subbu, in my life and with my daughter, and I say that there are certain times in life where you make forced choices, or rather, you don't wait for forced choices. You make them proactively. Rather than you waiting for something like that to happen for you to experience your own resilience or your own strength and the ability to handle, might as well make that choice when you know that you can do it, something about it, and go through that process. And I also, while you've not shared, but I'll take the liberty of sharing this, Subbu, is, for all of you who is watching, and thanks Harish Bhai for being there, Navneet, Ami, and I'm sure a lot of them are watching, maybe have not commented. Subbu, who comes across as generally very composed, matured, balanced,
No
this
emotion.
relationship of the father daughter, and the situation where he was so firm in his mind of making Aishwarya independent, drops Aishwarya to college at Bangalore, and on his way back to the airport weeps, cries, and himself doesn't understand why is he sobbing so much, because that was a conscious decision to drop Aishwarya to college.
Yeah, that was
And
a.
I think,
Sorry, go ahead, Kalpesh.
no, please, Subbu, go ahead.
So that was, now it looks funny, but it was totally out of the blue. And this is an interesting one for, I'm sure many of others in the audience would have experienced or would experience, was Both of us were concerned that Sunita may be able to manage this separation or not. And I was concerned for Sunita as well. And we drop her. The next day, we are off back to our own cities. So I was staying in Mumbai. So Sunita went to Mumbai. I went to Hyderabad because I had a meeting with my business partner. And on the way back, everything is fine. I mean, there's no issue. We haven't expressed any emotions or any of that, and everything was perfect. We had almost reached airport. It was still about 5-10 minutes away, and suddenly I start getting emotional, and I am telling myself maybe something else, and then that emotions grew to a point where I was sobbing, and I was telling Sunita, and Sunita suddenly started saying, "What is happening? What happened?" And I said, "I really don't know what's happening," because I said I can't tell why am I feeling emotional. And by the time I finished saying that, I'm actually literally sobbing there on the way back. And I keep telling myself that is strange. Why would I feel something like this? And seriously, imagine something hitting you totally unexpected, not knowing what is hitting you. If that is an example of that, then this is the best example I can give. And it takes me one long week for me to realize that it is because of Aishwarya staying back in Bangalore. And it takes me a week. At the end of the week, I'm saying maybe it is this. You realize how disconnected can you be with your emotions sometimes. I don't know whether it is disconnected or you are not being aware of yourself. And so initially I would feel ashamed to say that, but I think nowadays, and it's been long years now. So yeah, sometimes you do not realize how attached you are until that event happens.
Beautiful. Thanks for sharing that, Subbu, with us. And I think sometimes that's the beauty of relationships. As I mentioned to you, that this is the third father-daughter relationship that we're celebrating on Unscripted this month itself. And still, there are so many different nuances, so many different ways in which those bonds get created. And actually, I want to ask you, while we asked Subbu about making you independent and going through the choices that got came across, how has been your experience, whether it was Bangalore or then to US when you were studying,
Yeah.
and especially with regards to those relationship parts with Subbu while you're away from him, and I mean, how's that experience? How did that go for you?
So, Bangalore was surprisingly much easier, even though it was like the first big move, first move towards independence, so to say. And I was really happy in Bangalore. Even now, when I look back at it, I think it was like one of the best decisions from their end, from my willingness to go ahead and do that. That was really interesting, and I think what I started realizing was more when the shift to New York kind of happened, because and not it wasn't something that because I moved to New York, I'm suddenly feeling some sort of way. But the true independence, I think, really hit me when I had graduated out of college. So I had finished my bachelor's, and I was looking for a job,
New
and
York.
in New York, yeah. I was looking for a job in New York, and obviously there was the whole job stress and everything. So we crossed that, and then dad, because that had come for my graduation as well, so we got all of that done, and he leaves, and it's now almost about, I would say, maybe 3 months into work. And that's when I truly started feeling homesick, and to me that was weird, because I was like, wait, I've been to boarding school. I did that for 2 years, and then I did college for 3 years, and now I'm feeling homesick. Like, this doesn't make sense to me. And it was like figuring out a lot of things by yourself, and that's when I was really coming to understand, okay, independence means more than just, of course, like, living by yourself and being comfortable with it. And that's when I was calling home a lot, in my when I was working. And because Saturday, Sundays, I wouldn't really have a lot to do. I mean, you could go meet friends, but sometimes it's not the same as it would be at home. So that for me was interesting to kind of navigate through it. I think for a bit it was a difficult time, and I think for that, like, my parents were pretty supportive during those years, and always, like, obviously, like, open communication was definitely there between us. And what's interesting is, when I was leaving New York, I didn't want to come back to Mumbai, because I was like, oh, what will happen to my independence? And like, now I'm dealing with my parents. So it was so weird, because on one end it's like, I do want to have that, like, I want to have my family and close ones around, and the culture that I was brought up in. But on one end, I'm also like very much set in certain ways. Um, so that move to back to Mumbai was also interesting. And I think I recollect now that we actually had some conversations around it, and we established certain ground rules, because I come back from New York, and I remember this one incident where I had gone to the mall with not even my friends, with my relatives. Okay, my uncle and my aunt, and mom and dad were like kind of getting worried so much, and they were like calling me, being like, "Hey, where are you? Are you coming back home?" And that night when I came back, I think I was really upset, because I was like, wait, I'm in New York, and you don't even call days at end asking where I am, like, alone, what I'm doing. And now I'm in your city with your people who and here you are getting more worried about it. Like, that just didn't make sense to me. And so I was like, we need to have some ground rules here, and these are my conditions. And, like, so that was an interesting conversation, because I didn't see that coming in our dynamics for sure. But yeah, it was
That's
definitely,
another strange thing too.
yeah.
You know, the more you're sharing, no, Aishwarya, I think the more I'm getting present to this whole beautiful relationship, of a
Mhm.
father and daughter. That uh, while there might be so many things which are crystal clear about our personalities and about how we operate, but
Yeah.
it just all completely gets shattered when it comes to this relationship. And I'm so amazed with the kind of experiences you are sharing.
So that's another what shall we say, awareness that pops up unintentionally, and then you became consciously aware of
Aware of
it.
it. Yeah.
Because I get upset because she hasn't called, and she's only in Bangalore. While, like she rightly said, I wouldn't call for weeks together when she's in New York, and I wouldn't even bother to know where she is. And here, I know she is in Bangalore. I know she got down from the flight. I know she took a cab, and that's all it is. And it's only the gap of maybe an hour more than expected. And I really got upset, and I suddenly had to, after that, I had to reflect, because she kind of posed a challenging question somewhere, which made me reflect on it as well. And I think she said this. She said, "When I am not here, you don't bother to call, but I am in Bangalore. I told you I'm going to go this way, and all I haven't done is not contacted you for an hour or two, and here you're getting mighty upset." And she said, "This doesn't make sense," and that was true. But I had to understand that after that and reflect and say, "Yeah, that is interesting."
Wow.
You know, this
So
this kind of brings one more incident, which I just want to share, because I find it intriguing. Like, how in I'm not sure if this is the same case with a lot of parents, but how generally in a household there's like a strict parent and there's a more flexible parent to kind of keep that balance going, right? So interestingly, like growing up, my mom was strict. I mean, she's not too strict, but yeah, she does lay some of the rules. And my dad's more like, free flowing, and like, if you don't want to study, don't study. Like, there have been dialogues like that he said. But I remember this thing where I wanted to go to my friend's house, and I was expecting my mom to kind of say no, because I was like, I want to go to my friend's house and stay for a couple of days or whatever. And interestingly, dad said no. And then before I could like make a case for myself, my mom's kind of supporting me, and she's like suddenly turned 360, and she's like, you can allow her to go to New York and stay by herself, but you wouldn't allow her to go like the next neighborhood. And in those moments, I think what's interesting for me as a kid is like, okay, that's interesting that you guys just swapped roles, and like how I wasn't aware to that. So I was like, wait, what just happened? This is something dynamic that I'm not aware of. So yeah.
Beautiful. I think that's awesome. So, Aishwarya, continuation to this. Now, that you came back to Bombay, and now I know that you also started working together.
Yeah.
So, how is Subbu as a father versus Subbu as a boss?
Yeah, that that, it's it's an undefined line, between the two. I don't see a big demarcation between the two. And like, right, okay, so like obviously we've had our disagreements with our bosses, right? In any workplace, you go anywhere, you have disagreements with your boss. And sometimes you might get pissed off, or like you might get upset. So then you go to like somebody else, or like your parents, and you like download that experience onto them, or you share it with them. But here my boss is my dad. So I can't go to my dad and say, hey, look, this is what you did, because he is my boss. So, those are some situations that are a bit difficult to navigate. But overall, I think it's been pretty smooth sailing for me, at least.
Yeah, and I think even from my perspective, I mean, you haven't gone through a role or relationship where you're both, and nor was I ready for it. And I think it has been a learning experience for
Yeah.
both of us, because there have been moments where she has held her position, I have taken a position, and then I have reflected, saying, and it took me a while to understand that this was a clash between me being a father and me being a boss. And I think it took me a couple of instances to kind of get positioned into it. I would, the natural tendency is, if the discussion is about business and office related, and if she behaves in a particular way, it's the employer that she gets to see. That's a default. But post that, you start asking yourself, how can she do this? Why? Because she understands me in the first place. So she should know better, right? And plus, she is a daughter. And so I think somewhere what works for both of us is that grounding or foundation which is stronger, that holds it. Otherwise, there have been moments where it could have been derailed. Very
Yeah.
Wow.
Amazing. Yeah. It's like I just keep on listening to those stories that you're sharing. So, we'll just have a fun rapid fire round, and then we'll continue with our conversation ahead.
Sure.
I'll go with Subbu first. Subbu, here's your rapid fire questions. The first one, okay. What's the most useful thing you own?
What's the most useful thing I own?
Yes.
My daughter.
One point for that.
I don't know useful is the right word, but
Hey!
You just made it a thing. Okay, great. Thank you. The next question is, what is the best advice that you have got?
What's the best advice I have got? To chill,
Okay. Okay, thank you.
because I don't have enough.
Okay, and the last one, if you could talk in your sleep, what would you say?
That is a tough one. Uh, let's put it this way. What would I want to say?
Okay, what would you want to say?
So I would say, if you want me to recover from my worst day, let's say, and I'm touch wood, it doesn't happen, then I would all that one needs to do is bring Aishwarya closer to me physically.
Superb, superb. Thank you so much. That was your rapid fire. It was fun and it was authentic. Aishwarya, you go next. First question is, when was the last time you laughed so hard that you cried?
Maybe couple of days back, I think, with my mom, because my mom and I, we love to giggle, and we can. It's like what's that word? It's like a dynamo effect. Like,
So,
no, like one after the other. What's it
chain
called?
reaction.
Chain
Domino.
reaction.
Domino.
Domino effect. Yes, yes.
Yes.
So it's a domino effect. It's like one starts laughing, the other
Yes.
goes continuous. So like, yeah, that can go on between the two of us. I think.
Then they become unstoppable.
Yeah, and then dad has a hard time, kind of, being like
Joining in.
in. He has a hard time connecting.
Superb. Thank you. The next question is, what is the best compliment you have received?
Best compliment that I've received. Probably like when I had to give like a presentation and somebody said that I speak really well. So yeah.
Superb. Thank you. And the last question, it has a background, so I'll just give the background to the audience. You are very good at dancing and choreography. So now I want you to complete this sentence. Okay.
Okay.
When I dance, I look like dash.
I look like spoken poetry.
Wow. That was a really cherry on the top. Really nice. Thank you so much. It was fun.
Thank you.
And we can go ahead with the questions now. The conversation.
Beautiful. I think Subbu, Aishwarya, I think I have so many more questions and so much more to explore with both of you that I think we're going to fall short of hours. But I want to say that I think it was a beautiful last 50 minutes that we've been together. I think it was amazing. And being a father of a teenager, I think I got a lot of insights on how would my daughter be feeling, or how would she be experiencing life. And Subbu, the learnings that you shared about what are the things that I need to do to make her independent. And I think a lot of takeaways, a lot of beauty in this relationship that I saw. So I want to ask both of you a question, and I want both of you to answer that. Is what does celebrating relationships mean to you?
I think celebrating relationships, while we say the word celebrating, it's about all the ups and downs, because how will you cherish the ups if you have never been down in a relationship, right? And I think, like, especially for me, with if we were talking about me and my dad, even the disagreements have brought us much more closer. So I think when you look at celebrations, don't only look at the high moments in life, like, value the ones that kind of have put your relationships to test, because that's when you know the real growth is happening. Because if not, it's a very superficial relationship, at least from my end, is how I perceive it to be. So yeah.
Great. Subbu, what would you say?
I don't know. I've been thinking, what does relationship? I would say relationship is at the core of any living being. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you have, whether you consciously acknowledge there is a relationship, or whether you unconsciously kind of go about doing things. And I think when it is at that core aspect of it, the more you're able to connect, the more you're able to sense the person, and the more you're able to understand that person. And even more beautiful is when the other person knows you understand,
Yeah.
then that comfort of the other person knowing that she understands you just multiplies. And I think when that starts happening, you don't have to worry, you don't have to bother, you don't have to think about what she's going to do. You know that the person knows exactly how you would think and respond, and so you can totally rely on that person for many things, and not just necessarily from a work aspect, but also um, seeing yourself, see the seeds that you have sown grow into something beautiful.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think, it was fun to just have these conversations with you. We would also love to know how was your experience to be on this show with us and the whole thing of Unscripted. I think, what did you think of the concept that we are doing?
You want to go ahead? Or should I? So I really enjoyed this. I think in the just with the way the whole thing was structured, and also like the questions, because sometimes in today's world, like we're always trying to get to the next thing, and we're trying to like get work done, and we're especially, I mean, now with the pandemic, you're working in your home, you're so the demarcations and the lines between work and family time are actually not there. And how many times do we actually get to sit down and have these questions and reflective questions to really think about some of the things that you should really value in your life, and how little that you do until something like this comes around and makes you think about it. So yeah, I think that this was the best thing from Unscripted as a format of a show. And I love the rapid fires, and the bits of funs that you threw in there, because those that I really enjoyed it a lot as well.
Thank you so much. Subbu?
Yeah, so initially when Kalpesh invited me, I don't think I gave it that much of depth of thought, and I guess I hadn't experienced it, so that depth did not come along on its own. But having done this now, I think I think what it does to you, to me, one word that keeps popping up in my mind for the last 2 minutes or 1 minute is it's in a way it's a psychotherapy. It's a therapy, because you revisit, you relive, and you reconnect to those moments, events, and in our case, they're all moments of challenges and how we overcame that, how we addressed it, handled it. There were moments where we did well. There were moments where we did not do well. And when you draw all those bring together, and then draw a line through that, you start sensing even more consciously that how that relationship is. So, I think the Unscripted is a great effort. I think it kind of crunches the time over
Yeah.
the multiple decades of that relationship, and brings the gist out in front of people, and for the not just for the audience. I think it is more so for us,
Yeah.
as an example.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Subbu and Aishwarya. I think I'm left so much more content today with the experience, with the sharing that you both brought in, and I'm sure everybody who hears, and Subbu, on an average, we've seen that about 1,000 people in a week's time go through the show and listen to the conversations, and we keep receiving feedbacks and what they've experienced. And I think for all of those people who are going to watch this, I'm sure they're going to be left with you know left touched and moved with regards to the experiences. And I think that's the motto. Me and Shalaka, when we started this whole concept, the intention was that yes, if we go back and relive those moments, and I love the way you associated that to a therapy part of it, that if people can just go back and stop running behind that perfect relationship, stop running behind that idealism that people are seeking out to, and accept the thing that the way it is. I think it's there's a lot of beauty around in every relationship that you see, and it's all about how do you cherish that and bring it alive. And that's the mission, unscripted, that we've both begun with. So thank you,
Thank
Aishwarya.
you.
It was wonderful interacting with you, and thank you, Subbu, for accepting our invitation and getting us introduced to Aishwarya.
No, not an issue. In fact, I would like to say this, that thank you for capturing the moments for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have a live session here which literally talks
look
about
back
us.
on, yeah.
So thank you for that. And I think another thing I would say is it was pleasure working with both of you. And of course, I had the opportunity of knowing Shalaka a little more than just Kalpesh. So I may not have had significant insights, but whatever I've experienced, I think it has been a very pleasant experience. And I think not just pleasant, I think there is what I call a relationship which is pure enough. There hasn't been anything that I did not connect with. And I think that credit goes to both of you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, Subbu. Thank you. And it was lovely listening to you all. And I would like to appreciate and say that on this live show that it takes a lot of courage and I would say vulnerability to share the ups and downs the way you shared, Subbu and Aishwarya, as to what were your thoughts when you were dealing with certain situations and not holding back on the judgments as to how others would perceive you. On the contrast, people will take away a lot of lessons, learnings, they will resonate. And that is the whole intention of this show. And thank you for doing that for us.
Thank you.
And one last comment, both of you are looking really dapper, beautiful.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Subbu and Aishwarya. We'll
Thank
see you
you.
soon. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Wow, I think that's what I want to say, Shalaka.
Yes.
Beautiful conversation, so grounded, so humble, and I think I'm actually having goosebumps right now when I'm just thinking about the stories and things that Subbu and Aishwarya shared.
Yeah.
An audience, Harish Bhai, Umakant, Ami, Navneet, and all those people who are here right now and listening to us. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for encouraging us to bring this kind of a show and bring this kind of relationships to the table. We're going to continue our journey. Next week, we're going to have Sagar Amlani with his parents. So here is a person who is in his mid-career, who is just, who's been a successful person in his career and now moved into doing whatever he's doing in his life as a business, comes along with his parents. So we're talking about how and what kind of a relationship that he shares with his parents, and he wants to showcase that and share that with all of us. Next week, the speciality is that the show will be more of in Gujarati and Hindi to accommodate, and not bring language as a barrier for uncle and auntie to share what they want to share. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be breaking those barriers of limiting that to having these conversations only in English. But stay there, be with us, because we're going to just keep expanding and more relationships going to come with us. June, July already planned out, and we have names up till December for what is going to happen on this show. So thank you for being with us, and stay tuned for all the wonderful relationships that we're going to bring along. Any closing comments,
No,
Shalaga?
thank you. I think please keep showering your love and support to us. We look forward to have any of your suggestions. Any of you who would be interested in joining us on our show, do message us. We love to hear from all of you. And I think I will have a good day and stay safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless. Bye bye.